Hi, everyone. Like I said, we're just going to give maybe 1 or 2 more minutes for people to get logged on. I know people are coming from the Keynote and are trying to find their links. So, but welcome. Happy to have you here. Yeah, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. That's always nice. Thank you. Okay. Oh, I see more people are joining. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Good morning, everyone. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, thank you for joining the PeerTAC workshop. This one is called Collaborative Approaches for Leaders of Family Peer Advocates, FPAs, presented by TJ Curtis and Carrie Rollier. I am Angelique Rodriguez, the PeerTAC admin, and I'll be the moderator for this session. For technical support during the session, please reach out to me or to David, or chat to me directly during the workshop. I'll be happy to help. Just a few housekeeping things. Your microphones will be muted and cameras off to eliminate any background noise or distractions. And we encourage you to use the chat box to introduce yourself and to ask any questions. Choose everyone in the chat box for your comments, and that will be visible to everyone. And choose host and panelist if you want to ask questions to the moderator or the presenters specifically. So just a reminder that the session will be recorded, and a link to the recording, the slides, and any resources that we've given to you all will be posted on the PeerTAC website within the next 30 days, so don't you worry. And if you lose connection or accidentally leave the Zoom room, choose the link next to the title of this workshop in your program to rejoin. And if you need any help with that, also reach out to me. I'll put my email and number in the chat. If you're seeking CE credit, you cannot use a phone link. 10 minutes are reserved at the end of the session to ask any questions, and you'll receive instructions by email for completing the workshop evaluation and for earning CE credits for your participation from the Alliance. So with that, PeerTAC would like to thank everyone who has worked to make this happen. I'm very excited, and to learn more about these presenters and see their bios, feel free to visit the Supervision Summit and the Leadership Forum page on the PeerTAC website. I'll also be posting our website in the chat. And now, please join me in welcoming TJ Curtis and Carrie Rollier. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelique, and welcome everybody. I'm so happy to be here today. This has been an amazing 2 days of Supervision Summit, and TJ and I are very excited to be speaking to you on this subject that is very near and dear to our hearts. So my name is Carrie Rollier. I am the Director of Training and Workforce Development at Families Together in New York State. I am a family peer advocate, and I provided family peer support services directly for approximately 8 years. And 6 of those years, I was a supervisor of both family peer advocates and youth peer advocates. TJ, could you introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. I'm TJ Curtis. I reside in Brooklyn. I am a family training coordinator with Families Together. I started off as a youth advocate with CCSI. I was one of the first youth advocates to get some of the balls rolling in New York, and graduated to being a founding member of Youth Move National. Now I was a provider for families, as now I'm no longer a youth. Done that for some time. I'm a parent and I have children with needs as well. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all to take on this journey, as I've been a supervisor and I've trained FPAs, and as like Carrie stated before, it's very important and dear to our hearts. Thank you for coming.
TJ is going to start us off.
So this is a quote I found, and I thought it was very impactful and important for us to acknowledge. Is every person under the supervision is different. They're all different. They're identical in most ways, but not in all ways. You have to study and analyze every individual under your supervision and try to work with them in a way that will be most productive. And that was by John Wooden. And then another one I found, which is supervision is an opportunity to bring someone back to their own mind, to show them how good they can be. Often at times, supervisors, we get caught up in a cookie cutter approach, especially if we come from profits. And we got to remember at working with FPAs, the approach will be different because each family will be different. So we must treat our employees based upon their strengths, their identities, and who they are for the best outcomes. So the objectives: identifying and hiring an effective FPAs, establishing a positive and collaborative relationship with the FPAs, and supporting FPAs during opportunities of growth, and accommodation and supportive strategies for FPAs. So we just have to keep in mind that what we're going to walk through, these are things that we do or should be doing in organizations, but these are some additional and continuous strategies to help develop our FPAs. So our agenda, it will be based upon credential process overview, hiring and onboarding tips, regional and state support, and then supervisor supports. The lived experience defined is the parent, biological foster, adaptive, or primary caregiver of a child or youth who has a significant social, emotional, developmental, medical or substance use and or behavioral disability which manifested itself prior to the age of 21. A parent or a primary caregiver is a person who's primarily responsible for the day-to-day care of a child. The broadness of this definition gives us the opportunity to be inclusive of non-traditional family arrangements. And
All right. So we're just going to briefly overview the steps to a professional FPA credential. So the first step is completing our self-paced online level 1 modulars training. At that point, the person can then apply for their provisional credential, which would be a temporary credential. So we have an application on our website that is filled out electronically, and it's reviewed by our staff, and then they would receive their certificate. The third step is to continue on with self-paced level 2 online training modulars, as well as complete the level 2 virtual in-person training. So this is a live training that we hold every other month. It's a 4-day training, and it is it takes the information from the online modulars, expands on them, and then also puts them into practice. Immediately following the 4-day training, there is a series of coaching calls that must be completed. Everybody who is a participant in the training will do a presentation to the group, as well as attend as many of the coaching calls as possible. There's a number that they have to make, and if they don't make that, the number that is determined in order to pass the training, then they can make those up with another group. And then once they have those training requirements completed, they can apply for their professional credential. There are a couple of other things to keep in mind, such as they will need a supervisor reference letter. as well as we have a attestation document that they have work experience as a family peer advocate for at least 1,000 hours. Okay, so the difference between a professional and a provisional credential, with the provisional credential, they need to show their lived experience. So they'll do that in a statement. We have 4 prompts that they must answer about their lived experience. They need to complete their level 1 training. They have to be 18 years old or older. They have to show education. So this would be a high school diploma or equivalent. However, we do allow for education waivers for eligible candidates. We have they have to send in 2 letters of recommendation. These recommendation letters cannot be written by friends, family, or supervisors. I talked about the lived experience statement. They'll sign a attestation to the FPA Code of Ethics, and the provisional credential is valid for 18 months. The professional credential, again, we had gone over all the level 2 components of the training. They will need that supervisor letter of recommendation, that documented work experience of 1,000 hours. Again, they'll sign another attestation for the Code of Ethics, and it is valid for 2 years. And at that point, it will need to be renewed, which consists of having 20 hours of continued education, with at least 2 of those hours being DEI related. Okay, TJ.
So hiring and onboarding. So where do we find parents, caregivers with lived experience for the role of an FPA? So a few places that we are knowledgeable in are parents of children who receive special services now and or in the past. So we want to look out for those in our agencies, schools, things along the nature, which is coming up. Youth peer advocates who qualify for dual roles. So that means a youth, preferably who now has become a parent. They're not necessarily aged out of the youth role, but because now they have this lived experience now, because they have an additional aspect, we could utilize these individuals for the specific role in defining. Pediatrician offices, schools, PTA meetings, social media, libraries, and community centers are huge. So next slide. So how do we go about finding FPAs? So we have to define the role. Start by clearly outlining the responsibilities, qualifications, and expectations for the FPA position. Identify the specific skills, experiences, and attributes that are essential for success in the role, such as empathy, active listening, advocacy, skills, and personal experience with the challenges faced by the families. So develop job descriptions and criteria. Based on the defined role, create detailed job descriptions highlighting key responsibilities and qualifications required. Consider the unique needs of your organization and the population served. Develop selection criteria to assess candidates' subsibility for the role, including relevant experiences, education, certifications, and personal qualities. Source candidates. Utilize various recruitment channels to attract qualified candidates, such as job boards, professional networks, social media, and community organizations. Leverage existing relationships with advocacy groups or peer support networks to reach potential candidates with lived experience relevant to the role. And then we conduct interviews. Conduct structured interviews to assess candidates' qualifications, skills, and fit for the role. Develop interview questions that explore candidates' experiences, problem-solving abilities, communication skills, and understanding of the role of an FPA. Consider including scenario-based questions to evaluate their approach to supporting families in challenging situations. And now we want to conduct a reference check. Conducting references provided by the candidates to verify their qualifications, experiences, and subsibility for the role. Ask specific questions about the candidate's performance, interpersonal skills, and ability to work effectively in a peer support role. And lastly, offer an onboarding. Once a suitable candidate is identified, extend a job offer outlining the terms and conditions of employment. Provide comprehensive onboarding and training to familiarize the new FPA with organizational policies, procedures, and expectations. Offer ongoing support and supervision to ensure the success in their role.
Thanks, TJ.
You're welcome.
So TJ gave us lots of good information about the steps to go about finding FPAs, but we have this unique requirement of this lived experience. And that can sometimes be difficult when you're looking for candidates to figure out, how am I going to find out if they have this lived experience, right? Because we want to make sure that we are doing this appropriately. You know, it's not something that we can do by saying to somebody who is applying for a job, are you a parent and does your child have challenges? But what we could do is say to them, this role is a peer role, and that is defined with lived experience as this. And what I used to do is I would read right from Families Together website the definition of a family peer advocate that we saw on the last slide. That comes right from our website, and ask if, do you meet this lived experience? Do you have this lived experience? And that's a way you can get around that, you know, not making HR mad by asking an applicant if they're a parent or if their children have challenges and if they've navigated systems. So I think that is really important to talk about and to consider, because we want to make sure that we are abiding by the labor laws, and that we are. So this is a way that we can do that, is read them the definition and ask if they have that lived experience. Okay. So during supervision, family peer advocates should feel supported, right? So we heard Peggy talk about in the keynote, the agenda being set by both the supervisor and the peer. So we always say that it should mostly be set by that FPA, and their agenda should go first. Supervision, the way that it should flow is, if you think about it more as a guidance and an opportunity to provide support to that family peer advocate. That's how a family peer advocate is going to get the best benefit out of their supervision meetings. Work wellness should be a top priority. It should be encouraged, should be supported, and modeled, which means you as a supervisor are practicing work wellness. So you are not answering phone calls at 10 o'clock at night or sending out emails. You're practicing that work wellness and that balance, and you're encouraging the FPA to do the same. Safe space. Family peer advocates should be allowed the space to express their feelings of anger, frustration, uncertainty in a supportive environment without replications. So if they are feeling frustrated, if they are feeling upset about a team meeting that they were in where they felt that the family that they're working with was not heard, supervision meetings should be a place where they can express those feelings. Starfish stories. So starfish stories are success stories. And as a society, I think that we like to focus more on the challenges and the negatives and what can we do to change things. but we need to also celebrate the successes, and the small successes, I think, are just as, and maybe even more important to celebrate than the really big successes. If a family peer advocate is working with a family who on an objective that they're really struggling with, and then all of a sudden they make one small little step towards that goal, that's something to celebrate. Okay. Consistency, and we heard Peggy talk about this as well, regularly scheduled meetings. They having it on the calendar every Monday at 10 o'clock. We're going to have supervision with TJ, so that is so important. It helps to build trust. It helps to provide that necessary support. They know that on Monday mornings at 10 o'clock, they're going to be having a meeting with you, and they're going to be getting some support. They're going to be getting some guidance and encouragement. And it's really going to be necessary for these meetings to be consistent, to help them to be able to carry out their job duties effectively by getting that support. Okay.
So how do supervisors establish a positive and collaborative relationship with the FPA? Well, for starters, we want to build a rapport and trust. So take time to get to know your FPA personally and personally show genuine interest in their experiences, perspectives, and goals. Create a supportive environment where they feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and concerns. Effective communication is maintain open and transparent communication channels with the FPA. Encourage them to express their ideas, opinions, and feedback. Listen actively and be empathetic to their input, demonstrating respect for their expertise and their insights. Setting clear expectations. Clearly define the role, responsibilities, objectives of the FPA within the organization. Ensure they understand what is expected of them and how their work contributes to the broader organizational goals, and provide regular feedback and guidance to help them sign their efforts with their organization's priorities, excuse me. Um, Establishing boundaries. Respect the boundaries between superior and FPAs while maintaining a supportive and approachable demeanor. Clarify professional expectations and limits to avoid misunderstandings or conflicts. And promote collaborations. Encourage collaboration and teamwork among FPAs and other team members. Facilitate opportunities for joint problem solving, brainstorming sessions, and knowledge sharing. Recognize and celebrate their contributions to the collective achievement. Conflict resolution. Address conflicts of disagreements promptly and constructively. Encourage open dialogue to resolve issues and find acceptable solutions. Approach conflicts with empathy and focus on maintaining positive working relationships, meaning we should look for the solutions rather than a blame game. And then recognizing achievements. Acknowledge the achievement and milestones of the FPA, both individually and part of the team. Celebrate the success and contributions to the organization, reinforcing their values and fostering a sense of fulfillment in their work. When your FPAs feel valued, when they feel accomplished, when all these avenues are actually touched, you will probably have a loyal FPA for the long haul because they know that their needs will be met, that they will continue to grow with the organization, and most importantly, they feel valued. Because what the FPA does is also a reflection on the families we work with. If our families do not feel valued, if they do not feel listened to, those doors close. And that becomes a trickle effect actually going the other way. With our FPAs, how can we continuously do our work if our families don't feel valued or heard or listened to? So if we take all these into accountability, into knowledge of how we work with our FPAs, you're going to have a strong unit consecutively working to do and want to be more and do better. Next slide.
So the goal of an FPA supervisor is to be a coach, a mentor, a sounding board, Supervisors must build a strong alliance with their FPAs in order to offer effective supervision. So having a strong working alliance, why is that so important? We've been talking about it for, the majority of our workshop so far. So it increases the likelihood that an FPA will discuss on the job challenges. When somebody's feeling supported, they're going to, and they feel like the supervision meeting is a safe space, they're much more likely to bring up some challenges that they're facing, to get some guidance and to get some support, rather than trying to deal with it on their own, which can definitely lead to some burnout and high turnover. It increases the likelihood that an FPA will feel comfortable discussing pros and cons of the supervisor's suggestions and directives. So if you as a supervisor are making suggestions or giving some direction that the FPA feels might not be the best thing for them or is even outside of their scope of practice. So FPAs have a scope of practice, they have a code of ethics, and if you as a supervisor are asking them to do something outside of that scope or something that violates the code of ethics, if they are feeling like they have a strong alliance with you, they're much more likely to say to you, I think that's not something that I do as an FPA, and this is why. Or maybe it's the opposite. You're making a suggestion and they're really excited about it. If they're not feeling super supportive and in alliance with that supervisor, they may not outwardly tell you, yeah, everything that's a really great idea. And if there's that working alliance, they're going to be able to give feedback back and forth with you. And maybe that good idea grows into a fantastic idea because of that working alliance and the back and forth that you guys can have. And this FPA feels comfortable having. It also increases the likelihood that an FPA will feel comfortable discussing their thoughts to improve this program or the service, or even your agency as a whole. FPAs are a very valuable resource to your programs, to your service, to your agency, because they have been down that road. They were on the other side of being that family member whose child was in services that your agency may be providing. So their feedback from that perspective is a huge resource. And if they feel like they have a good working relationship, they're much more likely to say, you know what, when my child was in this program, this is something that really bothered me. Maybe there's a way that we can change that, or I always wished that this program did this, or that our agency provided this, or our community provided this. This was what was missing from my child's services when we were facing some difficult challenges. They're going to be a lot more valuable to you if they feel that alliance with you. Okay. So how can supervisors empower their FPAs? By providing training and development opportunities. Families Together is a huge resource of this. We have continued education. We're constantly creating more continued education opportunities. We hold TA calls every month, 10 months out of the year, where it's an hour to an hour and a half long, where we're providing continued education. They can use continued education credits towards their renewal applications. There is modulars. So connecting them with places where they can have relevant continued education, trainings, development opportunities. Doesn't need to just be Families Together. There's a lot of resources out there, and encouraging them to do that, allowing them the time in their schedule to be able to take a training that they really want to take, or it's going to be very valuable to them. offering ongoing support and supervision. We've been talking about that, why that's so incredibly important, right? Fostering a culture of collaboration and peer support, having that back and forth, having decisions be made with the FPA, with your team, rather than being filtered down from the top, and being delegating responsibilities and autonomy. So FPAs can, allowing them autonomy within their work, within the program, within the organization, and delegating some responsibilities that they may have a interest in. When I was an FPA, I actually really love admin work and paperwork and organization. And I was allowed the opportunity. We were in need of creating, some master lists for the program of the people that we serve and who is, what services are they getting. Our program had 5 different services within it. And I was given the opportunity to be able to do that organization. And I really appreciated that, because that was something I personally was interested in. So find out what interests the FPA that is in your team, and try to find some responsibilities that fit those. Acknowledge and celebrate achievements. So we talked about starfish stories, right? So we want to, all those achievements, all the little things are so important. Sending out a quick message to the team, or having a bulletin board, or way to go, Susan, you did it. This was great. You received your provisional credential. Fantastic, wonderful. Things like that. Just celebrating those things. It's so important. Advocate for resources and support. So if there are resources that are needed, if there's support that is necessary for your staff to do the best job that they can do, and they're not available in your agency, advocate for them. Find out where they are available and advocate that is something that your agency attains or allows. Maybe it's a conference, maybe it's a training, maybe it's a workshop that they attend. Maybe it's a tangible resource. Maybe it's a car to share, to go to the families' homes to provide services so that the staff don't have to use their own vehicles. Whatever it might be, advocate for that. Promote self-care and well-being. We talked about this a bit already. We want to always make sure that we are, we're not only promoting it for our staff to do, our FPAs, but also doing it ourselves. So we're modeling that as supervisors, making sure that, it's okay to take a mental health day. Everybody needs to. That's why we have PTO, right? It's okay to say, I just need like 10 minutes just to sit, have a coffee, and regroup myself. It's okay that you're not responding to emails that are delivered at 10 o'clock at night. It's okay for the staff not to answer text messages from families after their working day is over. So there's a couple types of supervision. And again, Peggy talked about this in her keynote as well. There's individual supervision, there's group supervision, and I am very much in favor of all of the above. In fact, I think that the most effective is a combination of both. So maybe 1 week you're doing individual supervision, and another week you're doing a group supervision. And group supervisions can look like a lot of different things. It can be just the 3 FPAs that you have in your program. Maybe your program is large and it has different services within it. So it could be once a month you meet as a whole group, and then once a month you meet as smaller groups. It could be maybe you have multiple peer types. Maybe you have adult peer and youth peer and family peer. So maybe once every so often you're meeting as a whole peer group, and then there's other times where you're meeting with just those individual peer groups. Whatever type of group supervision you choose to do, play around with it, very beneficial. But I do strongly suggest that you don't eliminate individual supervision in favor of only group supervision. It's so important for FPAs to have that space one-on-one and to be able to have that opportunity to talk about things that they may not want to discuss in a group setting.
So regional and state support. So as we all know, in the type of work that we are in, we are not the only organizations that do this. Each state has its own, and it's important for us to utilize informations, especially for growing FPAs and our organization, to see what might be working somewhere else. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? So it's best to check your practices, check your neighbors' practices. If something new is coming on up that someone else is good, like these trainings or workshops, to try and figure out when something's going on, if you have the funds or if it's for free, to have staff participate. So a couple of regional and state support areas. OMH is Regional Family Advocacy Specialists. They have great tools and resources to help educate, for continuously educating our staffs to do our jobs better. FTNYS events, we have a lot of events, a lot of workshops and trainings and partnering, and there's a lot of content that we have and to help train FPAs and other people who are serving the communities. Connection and support from FTNYS, Workforce Development Department. It's another great place to get support. We're always big on if people have questions, concerns. We will see if we have the resources to, if not, develop the resources to be able to provide that for us to move forward. Regional and state FPA advisory committees is another great way to gather support and information, what's going on in your region or neighboring regions as well. Next slide. Supervisor education. So not only our FPAs, but our supervisors should continuously be trying to learn themselves to better help their staff. So it's essential for non-FPA supervisors to have education in family peer support services, especially because this is huge. There are many organizations who are transitioning into having peer family support specialists. So it's important for the supervisors to get accustomed and acquainted to the resources, to the expectations, to the roles, so they could better support and provide for their newcoming and sustained FPAs. FTNYS is in partnership with CTAC and offers FPA supervising training modules and FPA hiring and support kits. If some of us who are on here have gone into CTAC, many of us have not, but they have ample information and trainings to help get you started and continuing your education in the FPA roles. So you should definitely take a look at this and try to adapt support toolkit to your organization to help better support the roles of your FPAs and the supervisors who are working with them.
So as TJ had talked about, having education as a supervisor on family peer support services is essential, right? So it's hard to be a supervisor to somebody who's providing a service if you don't understand the service. So if you're not a family peer advocate and you are supervising family peer advocates, like TJ had mentioned, we do have a supervisor training pathway that gives an overview of the service of family peer support. We're also going to be starting a supervisor lunch cafe that will take place every other month on the first Tuesday of every other month. And our first month will be in May. So if you are currently providing supervision to FPAs, whether you are an FPA or not, you're welcome to attend those. We will be sending out invitations to that within the next week or so, and you can register for those. They will be essentially an affinity space where we may have a topic that we're discussing, but it's more of an open forum so that you can get support not only from Families Together, but from other supervisors of FPAs around the state. I think it's something that's very needed, and we need to, supporting supervisors is something that we are very committed to doing. We do have a family peer advocate hiring toolkit. I'm actually going to be later this afternoon. If you plan on attending the resource workshop, I'm going to be going over this in depth. I'm going to actually share my screen and go into it live and show you what it looks like, but just wanted to plug it in here because I think it's such an amazing tool and a very needed tool, whether you are a family peer advocate or you're a supervisor that's not a family peer advocate. This is something that could benefit you. So within that hiring toolkit, we're going to be discussing what the FPA role is and is not, as well as some skills and qualities of effective family peer advocates. Some recruiting and hiring tools are in there, and checklists, setting expectations and screening, some interviews tips, and I believe that there's even some suggested interview questions in there. Onboarding family peer advocates. What should we do specifically for family peer advocates? I mean, every agency most likely has their own onboarding process, but what in addition do family peer advocates need in the onboarding process? Preparing your organization. If family peer support services is new to your organization or your program or the site that they're going to be working out of, this toolkit will give you some resources and some tips and suggestions on how to prepare your organization, not only on the admin level, but also helping to prepare the other staff to welcome and support family peer advocates, which is so incredibly needed. Communicating the family peer role to other staff. So like I said, that's the part that is going to really be helpful in having explaining what is a family peer advocate? Who are they? Why are they valuable? And they're going to be coming and working in our space, and they're going to be providing services to family members of the children that we're serving. How is that going to work with what I'm doing? And how is that going to be beneficial to these families? And, are they just going to go and have some coffee and chit chat with them and just be a friend? Or, what is this going to be about? So there's a lot of misconceptions about what family peer advocates do. So this toolkit can give you some suggestions on how to relate that to your staff so that they don't have those misconceptions or that they are corrected. Okay, and retention. How do we keep the family peer advocates? I know just about every agency struggles with turnover, right? This sometimes it can be quite high. So this is going to give you some tips and suggestions on how you can retain staff. Lost my mouse, I'm sorry. Okay, there it is. So where can you find this toolkit? There's actually now a link directly on the PeerTAC website that will bring you right into the toolkit. You can also find it on the CTAC website in the Self-Learning Center. You go to My Courses, or you go to Course Catalog, you find the toolkit. So it'll be FPA Hiring Toolkit. And then once you enroll into that, it will show up in your My Courses in there. Okay. So here's just a sample of what's in the hiring toolkit. This is a successful hiring checklist. I know it's probably super small for you guys and you can't read it very well, but it has a job description at the top. So developing a job description is an important part of the hiring process. And here's some steps to take to think about when about the FPA role in your agency. So it suggests that you download and review the FPSS provider manual. So the FPSS is Family Peer Support Services, and contact families together to let them know that you're hiring. We do have a job board on our website. So if you are hiring family peer advocates, all you need to do is email us at fpacredential@ftnys.org. Maybe Angelique can throw that into the chat, or TJ. And just ask us if we can put up your job posting on our job board, and we certainly will. We can also help with the credentialing process and answer questions with that, and guide yourself and your staff and what needs to happen in order for them to receive their credential. Consult with a experienced family peer advocate as you think about what that role will play in your agency or your program, and to develop the job description. So if you have family peer advocates in your agency, maybe in a different program or a different site, utilize them and ask them, we're writing a job description, what does that look like? Or maybe there's a neighboring agency that already has family peer advocates. Reach out and ask if you can speak to them and get some insight on what does this job actually look like and what should be in the job description. In this hiring toolkit, we do have some examples of job descriptions that are already written that you're more than welcome to steal or change a little bit to suit your agency and program's needs. So we do have some sample job descriptions available in this toolkit. The next section on here is about recruitment. So new and varied recruitment approaches will be needed. So review the FPA role and qualifications with human resources. Make sure human resources understands that lived experience qualification. It's going to be something very odd to them and new. And so, show them the Families Together website that this is the qualification they have. Somebody has to have this lived experience in order to be in this position. It's very unique, peer roles, and the fact that we are looking at lived experience and not work experience. Work experience is definitely something to consider, and I'm not trying to downplay the importance of that, but in order for peers to receive their credentials and really do authentic peer work, they have to have their own lived experience. So it's going to be something very, very new to human resources if you're new to bringing in peers in your agency. So make sure that you speak with them. And if you already have peers, if you have adult peers, youth peers, but you don't have family peers lived experience is even unique in the peer world. And the fact that it's not your own lived experience, it's your experience as a parent of a child who has some challenges. So even within the peer world, family peer advocates are super unique, both with their lived experience and the way that who they provide the service to. So they are providing service for that child, but they're not working with that child. They're working with the parent or the caregiver. So again, family peer advocates are super unique that way. This is a great way when you're talking to human resources to also come up with how are we going to screen for this lived experience, because by labor laws, we are not allowed to ask, are you a parent or are you a caregiver? And we're also not allowed to ask, does that child have some challenges, and have you navigated the child's systems within your personal life? Those questions are not allowed. So how are we going to do that? And like I had said earlier, the way that a lot of places do, and I did when I was hiring FPAs, is I would read to them and say, so this position is a peer role, and the peer part is about your personal lived experience. Here is the definition that New York State has on what a family peer advocate is. I would read them word for word what that definition is that's on Families Together website. We have that in the slides, which you'll be receiving a copy of, and ask, do you fit that lived experience? Okay. Develop a FPA job postings, flyers, websites, social media, targeted to parents and caregivers. And TJ talked about this on an earlier slide. Go where the parents are. So post at your at pediatricians' offices in your community. Ask if they generally have at least around my area, they have a bulletin board of community events. Ask if you can put a flyer up. Put a flyer up in your clinic settings and your other programs within your agencies, because the children who are coming in for services, it's their parents and caregivers that have that lived experience. So do some recruitment within that way. Going to libraries, going to the YMCA, anywhere, a community center, anywhere where there's going to be parents. Okay. Contact staff from other departments within your agency and encourage them to identify parents or caregivers who could be FPA candidates. This is super effective if you have like another program that serves children. So the providers who are working with those children, explain to them that you are hiring family peer advocates. Explain what a family peer advocate is and what you're looking for, and ask them to think about the parents of the children who they are providing services to. Do any of them kind of fit what it is that you're looking for? And maybe they can be candidates for this role. Cheers.
Sorry to interrupt. I know a
Yes.
couple people were asking.
Oh, okay. I can't
Is
see the chat. I'm sorry.
No, that's totally fine. Some people are asking, is it only a parent of a child, or can it be a caregiver of a family member with mental illness?
So we do say both parent and caregiver. So what the caregiver can be anybody, can be a grandparent, could be an aunt, could be a sister, could be even a non-relative. The most important part is, and this is back on that other slide, that a caregiver is somebody who is responsible for the day-to-day care of that child. I hope that kind of answers that question. So if you are, or the candidate is responsible for the day-to-day care of the child, that child has some significant challenges, they're in some children's serving systems, and you or the candidate has navigated those systems, they're most likely eligible to be a family peer advocate.
Great.
If
Thank
you
you.
have a candidate who you're not sure if their lived experience meets the definition, even after reading the definition, we as a workforce development department are always available. We get very frequently, we get supervisors reaching out to us and saying, I have a candidate for the FPA role. This is what they are telling me is their lived experience. Does this qualify them for this? And we're more than happy to pre-screen.
Great. Yeah, I know Susan just mentioned, for example, there was a brother diagnosed with bipolar, both adults now. Does this make someone eligible to be a family peer advocate, or is it only for families of a youth that are eligible?
You say that one more time.
Yeah. So the brother was diagnosed with bipolar. Both adults now, I think that's what she said. And then does this make someone eligible to be a family peer advocate, or is it only for families of a youth that are eligible?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this a couple different ways. So the youth with the challenges, the challenges needed to manifest themselves prior to the age of 18. However, if that child is now an adult, that parent or caregiver can still apply to be a family peer advocate. If this is a question about siblings, a sibling being a family peer advocate, and their sibling was the one who had challenges, that question is a little bit more tricky. So if the siblings grew up together and mom and dad or aunt and uncle or grandma and grandpa were the people who are responsible for that child's day-to-day care, that sibling would not qualify as a caregiver. If there's an age gap and there is a brother who is, let's say, 22, that is a caregiver of their brother who is 12, and there's challenges, and the brother who's 22 is the person responsible for the day-to-day care. They live in their home, they feed them, they bring them to school, they go for doctor's appointments, they advocate for them at the school setting, therapy appointments, those kind of things. That would qualify.
So
Does that answer your question, Susan?
a little bit? I just have a little bit more, if it's okay.
Yeah.
So I was just under the assumption, not knowing, that's why I'm in this awesome training,
Yeah.
that a family peer advocate is any family member that was or is dealing with it in the family. So now I'm understanding that it's only someone who was or is a caregiver of a youth. So is there another family peer that could be anybody in the family, even if it was a sibling that grew up in that family and now is an adult? Is that
In
a
this
different peer?
system, I don't think so, not in the mental health or behavioral health system, but I believe in the OASIS system there is, but that's all I want to say because I don't know enough about it and I don't want to give you wrong information.
Thank you. That you've just given me so much clarity in this little conversation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's what we're here to do, right? Angelique, were there any other questions?
I believe so. Let me double check. Oh, yes, there was a question earlier that said, sorry, I just lost the question. Okay, are FPAs included in clinical staffing of clients? I want the voice, perspective, and knowledge of them working with the families as they are a team member, but also I was told that their role or scope is not clinical and not part of their role.
So the service of family peer support itself is not clinical. However, there are family peer advocates in clinic settings, but what they're doing, the service they're providing, is not clinical. I know that was very confusing, and I don't know if that super answered the question.
Well, just to piggyback, my previous role as a parent advocate, working in an OMH setting for residential, our parent advocates, family parent advocates would be there in those meetings, especially to provide support of advocacy and just peer-to-peer. But as Carrie stated, we are not clinicians, so our role is just strictly based upon supporting the family and what that looks like, and then helping the family reach their goals, and and how to navigate these systems to be that person for them. We're not clinicians. We don't diagnose. We don't give advice on that type of stuff. It's just contingent on the family's needs and how to develop their strengths even more, and how to just make sure that they could get back to a place where they could be at peace to some degree with the services they're receiving.
Yeah, thank you, TJ. And I'll just add that even though family peer support services is not clinical, it doesn't mean it doesn't belong in a clinic, or family peer advocates don't belong in those team meetings, because when the peer service and the clinic services work together, that is going to help that family, that child, the caregiver just that much more. And so they're going to be receiving more supportive services and empowerment services through the peer service, as well as those more clinical services. And, you know, no one service is going to do it all, right? So this is a way where you can get, you know, the best of everything. So family peer support services working with those other types of services is essential. And in my opinion, very biased opinion, but still say I'm right. Denise, did you have a question?
Hi, everyone. More of a comment than a question. So I am the regional advocacy specialist over at the Long Island field office, but I've been a family advocate for over 20 years. And the thing that I want to make a comment about is, yes, your lived experience is of having a child, being that parent or that caregiver. But I want to express that I'm really working hard with getting out to the other agencies, that it doesn't stop at that child, right? That family engagement and family peer support can go beyond that age of 18, going into like a PROS program and trying to collaborate with the community and grassroots agencies to say, what type of family engagement do you have? You know, even though they're adults in these programs, I have adult children with mental health, and it started when they were young, but still being involved with that parent and family support, even though they might be in their 20s, those families may still need that. So I don't want it to say that it's limited once the child, and I'm not saying you did, once the child turns 18, that's it, family support, you get the other ones. We really need to spread the word that it goes beyond that, right? It's the lifespan of the journey, because families still need that support, even with their adult children, when you started with them when they were youth, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. And I agree 1,000% with you, Denise. I have 3 children who have developmental disabilities. All 3 of them are adults now, and it doesn't stop. You know, I have a 28-year-old son who lives on his own. He owns his own home. He's married. He has stepchildren. He still needs support from me. You know, I still worry, and I still give him some advice and tell him, you know, no, you took that you took that joke wrong, or you took that social cue, you didn't catch that. So, you know, we're still parenting regardless of age, regardless of place in the world. I have a 24-year-old daughter who lives with me and will most likely for the majority of her life, because her disability does not allow her to be able to be super independent. But
Exactly.
a 28-year-old
Yeah.
is dependent and still needs some guidance, you know, and I'm still parenting him. So yeah, I mean, it never stops.
That's why I wanted to make that comment.
Yeah.
And thank you for that. And it's not just for our own children. Myself as the
Oh,
regional family advocacy specialist, I'm trying to get that word out to other agencies that are geared towards adults, like a PROS program or something, and offering my services, or saying, hey, how do you get family involvement if that adult wants it? Like, how do we engage them? Like, I don't want it to stop with my work. I want it to be along the lifespan, that it is still there. And how do we engage families out in the community when the youth is past the age of 18 with agencies? That's what I'm with my own. I will always be supportive. Mine are 23 to 30, and I get it, but I just wanted to express that I'm trying, as the regional, on the Long Island regional, getting into those agencies that may just have peer support, and say, are you open to family support? Are you open to family engagement in the agencies that only serve adults now? You know, so I think that's really important as well.
yeah, absolutely. Sandra?
I don't know if you can hear me. I'm on a new computer at a new location. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You're a little bit echoey, but we can hear you.
The camera isn't working, but at least the microphone is. And I think that's a really important point what you were both discussing. And yet, you know, family engagement beyond the age 18 or 21. That's a really interesting piece. But I just had a comment too about what they were saying, what you were saying earlier about having the FPA on the clinical team. And I think it's something a lot of people are aware of. It's just, it seems to me the more I'm in those realms that there's such a challenge about, depending on the mentality of the agency, to really want, there's a key pressure to kind of pull because you're part of the team, they kind of look at you like you should be a clinical person or you need to back up the clinical rather than advocate for the parent. And I hear that so much where different agencies have different, they just don't always get it. So I think that's just something to be mindful of, that even though you are on the team, you're the parent advocate, you're the parent voice, even though you may get a lot of pressure from your higher ups to do something else. And I just felt compelled to mention that.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. Yeah, and that's so you're absolutely right there. And that's why it's so important that we are preparing our, clinical staff or other providers to be accepting and work effectively with family peer advocates or any other peer role for that matter. And within this hiring toolkit, there are some strategies and tips on how to do that. Families Together is always available to help with that as well, and give you some suggestions or even give some trainings on that. So, but yeah, it's very common for non-peer providers to have a outlook of peer providers in a negative sense, or they're not as important as their work isn't as important as what I do. They're there to do what I tell them to do. When I first started, that's exactly what the culture of the agency and the program was. And I was told by care managers what I had to work with the parents on. As I got more and more educated in what this service is, I have a backbone. I say it like it is. I've always been like that, but sometimes it gets me in trouble and sometimes it really is beneficial. But I started sticking up and saying, no, mom doesn't want to work on that. Mom wants to do this. And I did what the parents wanted to do. And that's what family peer advocacy is. It's empowering that parent and that caregiver to be able to successfully navigate and advocate for their child.
Yeah, and
that's what we're there for.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think as it over the years, it's moved towards the agencies or as it's moved more towards a medical model, I think it's been even more challenging. And I have to say, even as, at my previous agency, I was a supervisor, and then I was caught between, I wanted to advocate for my advocates, but then I was getting, well, no, now you're management. So now you have to, do this. So it was really complicated because, a lot of it is depending on the expectations of the agency to some extent. Only let you educate them so far. And then I changed agencies, so I'm in a better place. But yeah, it's not so it's challenging.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you on that. Angelique, are there any other questions? Or does anybody else have a question or a comment that they want to make? Are we done? Are we done at noon?
We're actually supposed to be done at 11:45, so we're kind of over time.
Oops. Apologize.
That's
I
okay
thought
though.
we got
There are no further questions if we wanted to begin to wrap up.
Sure. Here's some resources. You guys will get the slides. Here's our contact information again. You guys will get the slides. I'm so sorry. I really thought we were good till noon. Go ahead, Angelique.
No, that's okay. There's no rush. I know the next thing starts at 12, so
Okay.
that's a valid assumption. All right. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to TJ and to Carrie Ann. This was so amazing and informative. A lot of people in the comments were saying how helpful this was. Thank you to our sponsors at OMH. Actually, let me start my camera. My sponsors at OMH, our partners at the Alliance, and thank you to all the participants who took the time out of their day to attend the session. Just a reminder, in order to earn CE credit for your participation, you must complete the workshop evaluation. You'll receive this by email from the Alliance within 48 hours, and let me know if you haven't received it. I'll be happy to help you get access to that. To access your next session, go to the program schedule I put it in the chat to choose the title of what you want to attend and click the link next to it. And like I said before, the slides recording of this session will be available within 30 days on the PeerTAC website. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much. We hope to see you again next year. This has been awesome.
Thank you, everybody. And sorry
Thank
for
you.
going over time.